We're just normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up! Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is... for April 3rd, 2024. My name is Birdie Burns, sitting right across from me. She's just an innocent man. Ashley Burns, how you doing, Ash?
I'm innocent man.
You had a very eventful evening last evening. I am legitimately upset that I missed out on it.
Yeah, I had what may be so far one of the most country experiences I've had so far since we moved here. And that is that I was out chasing down rogue lambs.
They had gotten out of the fence.
They had escaped. So our neighbor...
I was putting the kid to bed, and I was like, where are you? And where are you? And I listen, I have to say, you did not share this adventure with me. I was putting the kid to bed.
That's because you were putting a kid to bed. And I knew
Yeah.
you had things to do. Even though you would very much like to be there, you were putting a kid to bed. So
Sheep were in danger. Lambs were in danger.
Lambs. Yeah, it was getting dark, and a neighbor noticed a couple of lambs were outside the pasture fence and came, knocked on the door. And I was like, let me get my jacket. And off we went to collect the lambs.
Ashley to the rescue.
Chase them down and pick them up and lift them. Well, one of them we lifted over the fence. One of them went under the fence. And that is how we learned how the lambs got out in the first place.
So the lambs were stuck outside the fence. And as I understand it, they were very upset. They wanted to get back into where the milk was.
And can I just say that little distressed lamb baas are heartbreaking.
There's a whole monologue in Silence of the Lambs that talks about that. It's what the name of the movie comes from.
I've heard about, and I heard one of the lambs was, after we got one of the lambs back in, there was only one left. And it was so distressed. It was just running around shrieking. It was terrified. And here's the thing. Do you ever imagine, right? We finally get this lamb back into the pasture. It was the cutest little thing, by the way. It was so just little and fuzzy, weighs less than Evie. They're still so tiny. And I always wonder, right, after you help an animal out like that, you help just some random animal, and then you go about your day, what story are they telling the other lambs? They're like, you're not going to believe this. There was a giant, right, like a bunch of giants. And I was like, I went left, and I went right, and then I dove, and I got away from them. I escaped. By the hair of my...
You know that's what they say.
By the hair of my chin.
No matter how much you help them.
I escaped.
One of the things these sheep do, especially the boy sheep and their horns, is they put their head through the fence and then they get stuck. And then you find them and then you're trying to get them unstuck and they're freaking out.
Right. They're trying to headbutt you to get you away from them. And they're trying to get themselves out and kick and just do whatever they can. And you're just doing your best to help them in spite of themselves.
And then when they get away... they go running off oh, I can't believe I got away from that guy.
Right,
you know?
They're like, haha, I've escaped. I read a recent, just a weird little story recently where two guys rescued a dog from a frozen pond and took it to an animal shelter because they didn't know what to do. And the animal shelter was like, sirs, that's a wolf.
They didn't know?
Big fluffy dog just stuck in a frozen pond, as they do. And
that's a Scottish wildcat that you've rescued. You have all these animal stories. Scottish wildcats, accidental cows. I think the accidental cow is still my favorite story.
You know what? When I was little, I actually rode a sheep one time. Did I ever tell you about that?
Did you do it in a rodeo?
I did. I rode a sheep in a rodeo. So that was
It's got a great name. I wonder if they called it the same thing in Utah they call it in Texas.
What do they call it in Texas?
They call it mutton busting.
I don't know if they referred to it as that, but that was the thing that little kids get to do because obviously you're not, we were too young to be in the age group where you ride the calf.
Yeah.
And so instead they had the sheep in a chute. They just pop you on. You just hold on for dear life. I rode that sheep to the motherfucking ground.
Did you?
It did. Choked it out.
Oh my God. It must have been a full grown sheep. You're not doing a tiny little lamb.
No,
right?
it was a full grown sheep. I don't even know how old I was, to be honest.
You're going to be subjected to the new Scottish hate crime bill if you're not careful here, babe.
Watch it, lambs.
They could probably smell that on you. These lambs were like, Oh, it's that lady,
It's
the
the-
sheep killer.
It's the mutton busting queen.
She's back. We know her too well.
Ashley. Men were toys for her amusement. Her total disregard for their feelings made love a stranger to her.
We had in the rodeo, we had a thing where kids had to they had like 100 kids. This was like Battle Royale before Battle Royale was a thing. It was like 100 kids and then 50 calves. In Houston, where I grew up outside of
Calves,
Houston.
like as in baby calves.
Little town called Alief, Texas. But the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is a big fucking deal. It's like what sustained the Astrodome for a long period of time. If the Astrodome is still up, I'm not even sure if it's still up or not. That's why it's up. It's because of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, which is a big deal. I can't stress that enough. So they'd have like 50 kids. They'd have 100 calves. They'd let them, got that backwards. 100 kids, 50 calves. They'd let them go. So the kids are like trying to fight the other kids off and then grab a calf. And then I think they had to get it tied up and pulled back across a certain line. And then they would basically like be in your accidental cow situation where then their family would then have a calf, although they knew what they were doing.
Congratulations, you won the cow. Oh,
And then they would bring it back later. They would raise the calf and then they would show it at the livestock show some subsequent year.
I'm reading this about the Astrodome, formerly and also known as the Houston Astrodome, or just simply the Astrodome, in which two men enter. One cow leaves. The world's first multi-purpose domed sports stadium located in Houston, Texas, with a record attendance of 68,000.
Some say eighth wonder of the world.
Set by George Strait in 2001.
So go ahead. What did you say there?
Is record attendance. I guess that's the most people they've ever fit in the stadium of 68,266. It was set by George Strait in 2001, which makes me think concert.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that for a stadium now.
Unless he was out chasing down the calves.
He got 5 calves in one go. He's a legend. But when you think about stadiums, like the Astrodome being built was like a marvel. I was making a joke, but they really did call it, when I was growing up, the 8th wonder of the world. I think about 1,000 things were called that. And the Astrodome was a huge deal, but only sat like 65,000 people total.
Yeah.
And now stadiums are like 110. I don't know what the biggest one is. I think it's 110 is Michigan Wolverines.
I was going to say, just ask the colleges. It looks like, this is interesting. The Astrodome was used as a shelter for New Orleans residents affected by Hurricane Katrina.
Yep.
And it was declared non-compliant with fire code by the Houston Fire Department in 2008. Parts of it were demolished in 2013.
Wow, that would be tough actually now that I think about it, because one of the really dystopian, horrible things for Katrina was that everyone kind of got into the Superdome in New Orleans. And apparently it was just like a mayhem. Like it was a dark place to be. And then if they moved some of those people and then put them in the Astrodome, that would be like, get me the fuck out of here.
Like, I've had enough of domes. Thank you very much.
I mean, I remember sitting down with Jeff Ramsey and we were in the Congress office and we had heard about Katrina from a kid at PAX, right?
Wow, that's random.
It was like the second PAX, so you would have been there. It was a kid dressed like Cloud Strife, or maybe it was the kid from Kingdom Hearts. I just remember he had a giant sword. And he said, yeah, hurricane's coming to destroy New Orleans. I'm like, what the fuck is this kid talking about? Went back. Here comes the hurricane. Hits New Orleans. And I was sitting there with Jeff Ramsey a week after the hurricane had hit and all this crazy stuff was going on in New Orleans. There was like people sniping hospitals, like just shooting at hospitals, shooting healthcare workers and stuff.
Wait, what?
Why? Do you remember all this crazy shit about Katrina? It showed the thin veneer of society. Like all you had to do was add a significant amount of catastrophe, but it didn't take long before that veneer was just ripped away. Like there were bridges leading out of New Orleans, and as people were trying to go across the bridges, people in the communities that lived across the bridges just put up signs going, if you cross this bridge, we'll shoot you.
No, I had no idea any of that.
It was
How
wild.
Did I miss that?
And it felt like it went on and on. Jeff Ramsey and I were sitting there, I think like 5 or 6 days into it, and the government hadn't shown up in New Orleans yet. Like all this mayhem was happening, all these horrible reports coming out of the Superdome. And I said, Jeff, hey, what would it take for us to just get like an 18-wheeler and just start driving? Like at this point, could we beat the U.S. government here after almost a week? Could we beat them to the Superdome? And we really talked about it for a long time, figuring out how to do it. If we'd have been a little bit like longer into, what we were doing, we probably would have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Like what year was Katrina? I want to say it was like
2005.
Right? Yeah, because that was second year of PAX, right?
Yeah, that would have been it.
Maidenbauer. Yeah. What year? What part of the year was it?
Well, if it was PAX, it would have been like August, September.
I'm trying to see if I've got like a false memory here, if I'm conflating two things. But no, 2005. That would have been it. Yeah. That was crazy. I always think about that kid who just said very matter-of-factly while we're standing at the booth, yeah, Katrina's coming, it's going to destroy. This hurricane's coming, it's going to destroy New Orleans. And I was like, get out of here, kid.
Yeah, it looks like it was the 23rd of August, 2005.
Yeah, so that would have been,
was the start date.
All that time frame checks out. So how are you doing? With your lamb adventure, did you sleep okay? Do you still hear them,
screaming.
Ashley? Do you still hear the lambs crying? Did you run away? All the way to the FBI.
All the way to the pasture.
Did you ever watch Silence of the Lambs?
I have watched it, yes.
God, that was like, growing up, I was probably just on the cusp of being old enough to watch that movie, probably too young. Although in the 80s, we watched horrific stuff. Like, the horror in the 80s was like dark and horrible stuff.
The things that I should not have watched that I watched anyway and then refused to admit to my parents that they deeply affected my sleep.
Yeah.
It's a long list.
I saw like a clip from Scarface that I had forgotten I'd watched, and I was like probably 10 years old. I watched it. It was about, there was a drug deal went bad, so they chained up a guy in the shower and just started going after him with a chainsaw. I was like, oh, right. This was a formative thing that I watched when I was a kid. 80s, they didn't give a shit. We saw like the worst stuff, and they didn't care about us at all. They didn't think about the impact of it. Friday the 13th, you know?
Yeah, go ahead.
My parents took me to see Amityville Horror.
I saw Amityville Horror. I was way too young. I saw it over at a friend's house, and I had nightmares for months. I swear, I think if I recall in that movie, someone like wakes up at like 3:15 in the morning.
Go ahead.
And it's this like
the window.
It's this like horrible thing. And I remember waking up and looking at the clock, and it was 3:15. I don't know. Here's the worst part. I don't know if I actually woke up or if I just dreamed that I woke up.
Oh,
and
that's
it was 3:15. But like I remembered that, and I was like for days, and I would like wake up and there'd be little eyes.
Yeah, the eyes in the window. Yeah, the glowing eyes. Amityville Horror, if you're not familiar with it, and why it'd be horrible to take a kid to go see it.
Don't take
it's
a kid
movie
to see it.
About ghosts that are attacking children, and the parents are powerless to stop it. That is not a movie that you want to show your kids. That is not a movie you want to bring them to.
On the upside, my friend's house had a Super Nintendo, so that was pretty dope.
So what'd you play on Super Nintendo? Super Mario 2?
We played Donkey Kong.
What Donkey Kong you playing on Super Nintendo?
Wait, am I thinking? Was that not? What are you talking about? Donkey Kong was Super Nintendo, wasn't it? And there was there's Sunset Riders.
You went full Gary Coleman on that. What you talking about? No, I think you're thinking about Nintendo 64, and you might actually be talking about the remake of Amityville Horror.
No, I'm talking about Donkey Kong Country on SNES. I just looked this up, and it was a real thing. And also Sunset Riders, which was like a side-scrolling, like a Western cowboy game. That was a fun time.
I guess I missed out on that one. Donkey Kong Country. I thought that was an N64 game.
Okay, hold on. Play that gaslighting drop.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. All right, you got it.
Right now, the world is experiencing what I experienced every day as a child.
All right, never mind.
Was it the Amityville Horror?
No, that's her intro to gaslighting. Sorry, I hit the wrong button on there. But it still suffices somehow or some way.
Speaking of games, though, I think, Bernie, I need to place a bet that I have found your next game.
Okay. Ashley prefaced this. She said, I want to talk to you about this game, but I'm going to hold back on it. Go ahead and explain this game to me.
Okay. So this is a game. It is not out yet, but
it sounds like just my type of game. Game I can't play.
But here's a preview out, and I'm going to read you the headline. Jump Ship plays like a mix of Sea of Thieves, Left 4 Dead, and FTL.
Get the fuck out of here.
This is your trifecta, Bernie.
That's like a Venn diagram with me. You're like smack in the middle of it.
And it's got
Left 4 Dead, FTL, and Sea of Thieves. How does that even mix together?
So it goes like this. The Sea of Thieves piece comes, this is a preview by Ryan McCaffrey over at IGN. It says, the Sea of Thieves piece comes from the fact that you and your 3 teammates all work together to fly, upgrade, customize, and maintain a single spaceship.
How many friends?
You and 3 friends.
I'm out.
I know you don't actually have that many friends. One of you flies it. The others can wander around inside or on the outside of it if you pass through an airlock and use your mag boots to stomp around the hull, manning, fixing, or upgrading ships' cannons.
That's the FTL part.
Right. Even if it was just Thieves in Space, that'd be cool. But you also land your ship, use your jet drive to awesomely fly through the air like Superman, go into instance combat areas, battle AI enemies. It is a PvE game, which is one of the major differences.
I'm fine with that if it's 4 friends, yeah.
Add in that an AI director, to use Valve's term, dynamically populates the encounters, and you can see where the Left 4 Dead ingredient in Jump Ship's recipe comes from.
I'm in.
And then finally, FTL. On board your ship, you'll manage power conduits and other ship functions in an FTL-esque mini game.
Okay, this sounds like a great thing for a community game night. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so we'll get that going.
It's not actually, I'm a cool guy. It's not that I don't have 4 friends. I just don't have 4 friends that'll play a video game. Also, 4 friends that want to play a video game at like 1 p.m. their time. That's where it works. The time shift works great for a morning show. It doesn't work so great when you want to play video games.
You just need to get a bunch of people who work the night shift.
The number of times, how many when we had a Halo night with my friends when we first moved here, I was up. Sometimes I get up at 4 a.m. to play Halo with people because it would be 10 p.m.
Yeah, you have to set the alarm.
Or my friends on the West Coast, they're an 8-hour shift. So basically, I'm waking up on a different day. I'm like up at 8 a.m. and they're playing at midnight their time.
One final thing that I think might give you a little bit of interest in this game is that Daniel Kaplan, employee number 1 at Mojang, is working on it. While
you're talking about Daniels, and we're talking about potentially a community game night.
Can't wait to see where you're going with this.
I want to thank Daniel Federation for being a 2-time sponsor of the podcast and making this episode ad-free for all of our other listeners. Look at you guys. Daniel's out here twice providing content for everyone else in the entire world. Daniel, thank you very much.
I heard that Daniel can fly a 4-person spaceship by himself.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a person to have on the gaming community night, then I would say. Community gaming night. I got that backwards.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to get that going.
Thanks, Daniel. We appreciate you. Twice over.
Moving to current events. Have you heard about this lawsuit? It's against Facebook.
I read about this. Please explain it to me because it doesn't sound like a real thing.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's been ongoing for a while, but some new court documents got unsealed as part of it. So it's a big antitrust lawsuit.
Unsealed court documents, my favorite kind.
Yeah, alleging that Meta allowed Netflix to
seal
access.
Off.
Where are you even going with that?
Sorry, go ahead.
The Meta allowed Netflix to access Facebook users' direct messages for nearly a decade.
Seems bad.
That does seem bad.
Seems really bad.
Would break a couple of anti-competitive activities and privacy rules. So these are court documents. They're part of this major antitrust lawsuit filed by U.S. citizens Maximilian Klein and Sarah Grabert, who claim Netflix and Facebook, quote, enjoyed a special relationship so that Netflix could better tailor its ads with Facebook. Basically, saying that Facebook gave them this access. Netflix, in return, did huge ad spends with Facebook. For their part, Facebook is, of course, saying that's not true at all. They're saying, let me see this here.
Okay. Let me see if I understand this right. So it sounds like people could be on Netflix and then they could send messages to people on their friends list on Facebook. They could send them Facebook messages. Why would people not think that Netflix had access to the ability to send messages on Facebook? They're worried that they could read.
So a Meta spokesperson told Fox Business on Tuesday, Meta didn't share people's private messages with Netflix. As the document says, the agreement allowed people to message their friends on Facebook about what they were watching on Netflix directly from the Netflix app, and such agreements are commonplace in the industry. So they're saying they didn't read your stuff. They let you send messages basically using the Facebook like DM system, and they weren't just like reading your DMs being like, oh, did you check out, I don't know, The Gray Man? Red Notice, wow.
Which I think this is a fantastic feature, honestly, because if someone messaged me on Facebook of what they were watching on Netflix, I would know to unfriend this person immediately. What are you doing? Who are you? That's worse than someone calling you on the phone. messaging me on Facebook to let me know what they're watching.
Really think you should check this out.
I turn all that shit off immediately, all that Netflix stuff. Okay, can I put on my lawyer hat for a second? This is my lawyer hat.
Put on your lawyer hat.
This is anecdotal evidence, Your Honor, but what
you are witnessing is real.
I think there's no possible way that Netflix had access to read people's DMs, because I have never heard once in the last 10 years of someone discovering something in their partner's Facebook messages through their Netflix account, nor from people who share accounts on Netflix being able to access other people. That would have come out at some point.
I do feel like that would have led to like some really interesting, like I caught my partner cheating because he had a Netflix watch party with another girl.
He recommended Love Actually to my sister.
Regardless, though, it's going to be.
Don't you agree, though? That would have come up.
I feel like it would have. However, that this is for, they'll dig into it, in the court as part of the lawsuit and everything. It's not like Facebook hasn't towed the line with weird stuff before. I mean, they've lost or like allowed to be leaked, I guess.
Yeah.
A bunch of user data. Ireland, like, seriously, go Ireland, levied a huge fine against them. It was 2022. It was a $284 million fine after a bunch of user data leaked.
Ooh, that's a chunky one.
It is, for especially like coming from Ireland. They're like, you don't fuck with us.
It's a year and a half at Reddit.
You can run Reddit or leak data.
I wonder how much, though, Facebook has made. What was the estimates? Do you remember what the estimates were when Apple turned on the ask to track notification? And of course, I honestly, for any app, I've never allowed that.
Great. Specifically, you're talking about the feature in which Apple will pop up a request saying, do you want to this app wants to track you when you're not using it.
Every other app you use.
Like it wants to see like other stuff you're doing. Do you want to allow that? And you go, fuck no.
Absolutely not. And even now, some apps will even tell you before that pops up, before they trigger that. Like, here's why we want to do this. This is our rationale for it. Please let us do this. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's a really great reason. It pops up. You go, fuck no. Every single time. Absolutely not. All right. In closing, can I talk about some Netflix things since we're talking about Netflix accessing my Facebook messages?
Are you going to share it on Facebook?
I'm just going to read my Facebook DMs here if it's okay. It's just me talking to my older relatives going, that was a funny meme. Then explaining what a meme is.
Oh, grandma, you're funny.
So 3-body problem. I'm like one episode from the end. Hey, you spoilers, people out there. I'm going to be done by the time you hear this. The other thing I saw, which is a Netflix movie that's coming out, I think if memory serves, it's directed by Jerry Seinfeld, and it is. It's called Unfrosted, and it looks like a story behind the development of the Pop-Tart. And when you first start to watch it, when I first started to watch the trailer for it, about the first 10, 15 seconds, I'm like, this looks fucking stupid. By the end of the trailer, I'm like, I cannot wait to see this movie. It's like an 80s style, early 90s style, ridiculous cast. Like Jerry Seinfeld was directing something, so he said, who can I get to play literally every single part in this movie? The cast list, when it goes by, it looks like it's about 70 people.
It is. So
heavy hitters.
This is the long list. The film stars and ensemble cast includes Seinfeld, Melissa McCarthy, Jim Gaffigan, Amy Schumer, James Marsden, Jack McBrayer, Thomas Lennon.
You're going to be here a while.
Bobby Moynihan, Max Greenfield, Bill Burr, Dan Levy, Christian Slater.
Let me stop you right there. Bill Burr plays JFK in this. I'm so sold just on the fact that is such inspired casting that Bill Burr is playing JFK.
What does JFK have to do with the Pop-Tart?
It's wild. You have to watch the trailer. It seems like a lot of fun. I am definitely looking forward to Unfrosted.
Oh, it's coming out on my birthday.
The 3rd of May. All right. So everybody remember, bookmark now, Ashley's birthday, 3rd of May, because you want to watch Unfrosted. All right, well, that does it for us today. April 3rd, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.